In this video, I'm going to answer a question that keeps popping up. And I don't think I can put it off. I can't put off answering this question any longer. I got irritated. There's one person who came into the forums and asked this question, and he's the fourth person who has asked the same question in the last week. And the question is, why won't I have a friendly conversation as to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and how well Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu works, okay? I am constantly being asked, why won't I just have a conversation, right, on, something that people disagree with me on, or when people disagree with me on something, why won't I have a calm conversation now about it, right? I've been wanting to say this now for at least 10 years. So here we go. In regards to why I will not have conversations with people who disagree with me on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, this is my answer. This is my answer. I've been on social media for 12 years. For 12 years. How many of you know who Ray Arcel is? You were going to look him up. But Ray Arcel, to me, is the greatest boxing trainer that ever lived. Ray Arcel. How many of you know who he is? How many people on social media even know who he is? How many of you know about one of the greatest strikers in the UFC history, Maurice Smith? How many of you know him? Know who he is? Most of you don't. How many of you have even heard of another great striker named Pedro Rizzo? Now, you're going to look them all up. You're going to look them up, and then you're going to come in my forums, and you're going to say, oh, I know who they were. I know who they were. Here's the issue. For 12 years, I've been on social media. From talking about boxing, to talking about wrestling, to talking about karate, to talking about MMA, I have been virtually unmatched. No matter what the ethnicity, virtually unmatched for 12 years. For the entire 12 years. Now, at the end of this video, I'm going to tell you who my peers are. Right? Who my peers are and really who my argument is with. I'm going to tell you who my peers are, who I see my peers as being. But I need to get this off my chest. For the entire 12 years that I've been on social media, right, I have gone and looked at the forums of other people less legitimate than me and have never seen the kind of insults, nor have I ever seen the kind of demands for those people to prove themselves. Let me give you an example of one person who white Americans have let off the hook for decades. Their great hero, Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan was born in Newark, New Jersey, a place where I spent half of my life. I'm getting this off my chest, and this is directed towards all those people, mostly white Americans, who think I need to defend everything I say. This is for you. This is for you. Okay? Joe Rogan was born in Newark, a place where I spent more than half of my life. Eventually, it was so rough that his mother got him out of Newark for fear of him running into people like me. But this is your idol. I live in New Jersey. New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts. Right? Joe Rogan moved up to Connecticut and as a young man competed in some taekwondo tournaments that were not open tournaments. What does that mean? That means your hero did not have to fight blacks and Hispanics or white people of any other martial art. He did not have to fight anyone of any other karate style. He was part of a taekwondo organization that was closed off to all the best fighters in the New York metropolitan area. Did you know that? Did you know that? The man stopped training. He stopped training because he went into a boxing gym and was getting his behind beat. And he was worried about getting brain damage. Everything you know about Joe Rogan is almost a complete myth. But you made him kickboxing champion. You made him all of these things, and Joe Rogan for the last 20 years has been hitting the bag and hitting the air. Hitting the bag and hitting the air. And white Americans, you have never asked him to defend why Jean-Claude Van Damme does more sparring with MMA fighters than Joe Rogan. Yet he has the phone number to every one of those fighters. You white Americans have never asked Joe Rogan to defend the fact that Michael Jai White does more sparring with MMA fighters than Joe Rogan. Yet Joe Rogan has the phone number to all of those fighters. You white Americans have never once asked Joe Rogan to defend the fact that the actor Tom Hardy does more competing in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu than Joe Rogan, yet Joe Rogan has a black belt and has the money to go wherever he wants to go and compete all over the world in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Right? But you want to come into my forums, Safe Carmen, right? Whose credentials can be checked. Whose credentials can be checked. There are two main ways you can check my credentials. Number one, I am, and I'm talking about there are some people who trained me, who taught me bare knuckle boxing, who are now dead. One person who taught me street fighting is in prison. Okay, he's in Leavenworth, and he's never going to get out. He's in the federal penitentiary of Leavenworth and is never going to get out. And he was one of the baddest men walking and taught me bare knuckle boxing. But when it comes down to the two things that you can really look at that proves my legitimacy is I am the last advanced student of the greatest full contact karate teacher born on American soil. The last one. He will never teach another advanced student. I'm the last advanced student of that full contact bare knuckle karate teacher. But there are also people who come into my forums who remember me. And I just don't bring it to your attention. But they know what I used to be on the street. They know how long I've trained. They know the kind of bare knuckle matches I've had, boxing and karate matches, and they can attest to it. Okay? But not only that, look at my channel. And what do you see? This man who you want to defend everything that I say. This man who you want me to open up a forum me and you can debate something I've said about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You can go and look and see me training. And you can see my students hitting me in the face. You can see my head snap back from the force. You can see me frown because of the power. You can see me wince because of the power that I'm getting hit with on social media, on my channel, taking punches, taking punishment. Okay? You can see it. Not hitting the bag. Not hitting the air. You understand me? See, the thing is, you people only want me to defend what I am saying because you're butthurt that it happens to be me saying it. It's okay. I know you need therapy. You know you need therapy. But be honest. Be honest. Why do I have to defend everything that I say, but yet you have frauds like Joe Rogan? You have frauds like Joe Rogan. I can go look at his forums and not one insult. Not one insult. The greatest fraud, the greatest single martial arts fraud and coward on social media is Joe Rogan. And yet white Americans continue to talk about Joe Rogan is this, Joe Rogan is that. Joe Rogan is a damn coward. He's a coward. He is a man who challenged Wesley Snipes, but would not challenge somebody who would take the challenge in Michael Jai White. That's your hero. Your hero. I can go to your forums. I'm almost finished, but I've been waiting for 10 years to say this to you people who question every single thing I say. And then when I say something about race, you say I'm playing the race card. You have heroes. You have heroes. And I mean this. You people, I'm looking in the camera, I'm telling you. Safe Karma is saying this to you. You have heroes that if they were in prison, they would have to join a white racist group to save their butt. You're heroes. You have heroes that you think are so good in karate, that make those funny faces, right? Who have 1 million subscribers, okay? Their butt would be this big in a federal penitentiary. Their behind would be this big. You could put a bus through it. But they're your heroes. But you come into my form, and you expect me to sit and argue with you and debate with you all 300 comments. You expect me to defend myself with all 300 comments. Meanwhile, you're swinging from the dirty jock of Joe Rogan. Really? No. I have deliberately put up information that you can't get nowhere else. I have deliberately posted information, right? That any real martial artist would look at and say, that man is a real martial artist, but not only that, he's a lifelong martial artist. From the things he does, to the things he says, to the people he mentions, he's a legitimate martial artist. Anyone who was not butthurt, thin, or racist would acknowledge that fact. On the issue of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I will say again, no respectable combative teacher uses Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as a base. Not one real combative teacher uses Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as a base. They use boxing as a base. They use Krav Maga as a base. They use karate as a base. Okay? All right? In fact, the father of modern day combatives, Jeff Thompson, uses karate as his base. Not one combative teacher, not one uses Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as their base. You know why? Because the dumbest thing you can do, the most idiotic thing you can assume, is that a martial art that uses the ground as their default position should be taken as a self-defense system. Okay? Not one believes Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a martial art that should be the base of a combative system. Not one. Not one. Okay? Not one. Lastly, for those people who think it's about race, my martial art peers are not even American. My martial art peers are not even black. Because in America, there are too many black people who are into joint blocks and flipping around and this kind of thing, right? I mean, some of the martial arts that black people are into is laughable. Laughable. Okay, makes me ashamed to look at some of the videos of a black American martial artist. Okay? My peers, people who I feel I have something in common with, my peers are white combative teachers from the UK. Jeff Thompson. People like that. Okay? Those are my peers. Those are my peers. The white combative teachers who understand the seriousness and the necessity to master the blade. Okay? The necessity to be able to use improvised weapons, ballpoint pens, credit cards, cell phones. Okay? Those people. Those are my peers. The greatest martial artists that I've ever seen as a group. As a group. I've seen, obviously, great black martial artists. I'm one. The greatest martial artists I've ever seen as a group happen to be Russians. I've trained with them in wrestling many years ago. Recently, or maybe not so recently, but after wrestling in Kyokushin, the greatest martial artist that I've ever seen as a group of people happen to be Russians. Okay? But the worst martial artists I've ever seen are white, middle-class Americans. The worst are white, middle-class Americans who think they're roughhousing in the parking lot of a 7-Eleven is real fighting. Who thinks that real fighting is what they do in their air-conditioned, matted studios of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Okay? I don't have to defend a damn thing to you people, because you people are not legitimate martial artists in the first place. As long as you were swinging from the dirty jock of Joe Rogan and you were idolizing people who, if they were in prison, their butthole would be that big, as long as you're doing that, you don't deserve for me to answer any of your comments. And this is not a white thing or a black thing. It's a culture thing. Okay? The people who I am in, the people who understand where I'm coming from are people who understand real violence. And if you were talking about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu being an ultimate martial art, if you were talking about laying and sliding around on your behind trying to submit somebody with a leg lock, then you were not to be taken seriously. You were not to be taken seriously. That's why I don't have any friendly conversation with anyone who thinks that laying on your behind is the proper defense against multiple people, or a knife, or a machete, or a stick. You don't deserve me to comment. Now, you can like it, you cannot like it, I don't care. But you happen to be the worst, most in denial, okay? It is what it is. Here's your answer. See you next week.